My name's April Sawtelle and welcome to my channel. Today what I'm going to be doing is working on quilt block number 3 of the Quilt Block for Beginners series. So this is going to be a rail fence or a fence rail. They're all the same. They can be called either or. And what this is it's a very basic block, but it's used in so many different ways. I'm just going to show you the very simple, basic block here. I'm going to make 4 of them though, so I can show you different designs that we can do. What you're going to need for this project is just your rotary cutter. You're going to need a ruler. I've got a couple of different rulers here. I've got a square ruler, and I've just got a rectangular ruler. And you're going to need an iron and your ironing mat. Okay, so what we're going to do for this is you're just going to want to have you can use as many fabrics as you want, as many fabric colors as you want. I'm choosing 4. I'm going to use my yellow at the top. So you want contrast in fabric. So I've got light, dark, light, dark. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to sew these 2 together, and then I'm going to sew these 2 together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open these up and put them right sides together. If you don't know how to cut the strips, I've got a video that tells how to cut strips. I'm using 2.5-inch strips here. You can use any size strips or make them any size you want to. It's going to be dependent on how big you want your block. So I'm just going to keep it very simple. I'm going to stay at the 2.5-inch strip, just because a lot of people have those handy, maybe from a jelly roll or from another project. So we'll just work with those, and we'll just get how this all comes together. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take these, and I'm going to pin them. You don't have to pin. I'm just going to do it just to get started here, and just because I want to show you, if you're a beginner, you might just want to see different ways at how to go about this. So I don't always pin. Working with strips is pretty fun. It's fast. You can whip them right through your sewing machine. So I'm just going to line these right sides together, and I'm going to pop a pin in just to show how this method works. I want that nice and flat. Okay, and you're going to put your pins. So what you do with your pin is you take your pin, you push it into your fabric, and then you bring it up towards you. I always like my pins to go the same direction, so mine are usually coming at me, or maybe they're going at sideways, but I always like them going at the same angle. That way if I'm going to get jabbed, I'm going to get jabbed from the same angle every time. Okay, now I'm just going to keep lining this up. I usually put my pins about the same width apart. There's no rules. Remember, there's no rules to any of this. We're just giving guidelines. Just something to go on. Okay, almost to the end. I'm going to put one more pin. I'm going to take my yellow fabric. I want that on the end, because when I put these together, you'll see when I'm done, that yellow will always be the one it will be the focal point. So all right, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll meet you over at the sewing machine, and we'll go from there. So I'm over here at my sewing machine. I'm on my Janome 6700P. All I'm going to do is lower the presser foot, and I'm just going to take that little, I'm going to start my stitch just behind the fabric butt, just so the first stitch will come right onto the fabric. I've got this guide here. All this is about 4 layers of painter's tape, and I've made that just to guide me. So you'll find that sometimes you'll go crooked, even though you're following the edge of this presser foot. It still seems to want to go crooked. So sometimes, depending on what you're working with, you may want to bring that tape even further out from your machine so you have a long stretch. I've just got this little bit. I know if I stay right on the edge of it, I'm going to be at a good 1/4 of an inch. Okay, here I go. I'm not going to run over my pin, so I'm going to start my stitch, and I'm going to pull my pin out when I get to it. So you're just going to go all the way down your fabric at whatever speed is comfortable for you. And I'm coming back to my pin. Remember, just stay right on the edge of your presser foot. Sometimes your fabric might get a little, even though I've got a pin there, I should have put another one there because I could see it pulled over a little, but that's okay. I pulled it back in place. Keep your presser foot right on the edge of your fabric, and you should be good. And then this guide just guides you in. Strips of fabric are pretty fun to work with because once you get going, you can really just go fast with them and get them sewn right up. Okay, that one's done. I'm just going to cut this because it's going to be long, and sometimes I would chain piece it, but in this case, I'm not going to. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set the seam. I'm going to pick it up by the dark side. I'm just going to glide my iron across it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this. I'm going to use my fingers to push that open. And I'm just going to push that fabric out. I'm just pushing the seam to the dark side. Okay? Start right down here too. Might be easier. You're just opening that crease up. It's like just so there's no little fold in there. I kind of like pressing everything. You're gonna find that either works for you or it doesn't. Either way is fine. Some people like to press everything, and some people just, no, they have no interest in it. Okay, so I'm going to do that to both pieces here. I'll set this one right here. And I'm going to pick it up by the dark side, press, set the seam, and press my iron down. I'm just following that seam line. Okay, gonna open up the fabric. That just relaxes it. So when I open up the fabric and start taking and pressing that middle open, it just goes nicely. And all of my seams on this are gonna be folded toward the dark side. So I know that I went light, dark, light, dark. So I need to put these together that way. Because now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sew a seam right down this light piece of fabric. Okay, so it will be light, dark, light, dark. Pinned it all the way down, and then I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to just give it a 1/4 of an inch seam all the way down this light side. Okay, because I remember my yellow is going to be at the top, so I need to connect to this dark side with this light side. So I'll go give that a 1/4 of an inch seam, and I'll meet you back here. I'm just gonna okay, and then I'm gonna open this up, and I'm just gonna let my iron glide over this. I just want to make sure everything is pulled out. Now we've already set the seams on everything, so it should open up nicely. Now I've done this to 2 different strips because I'm going to show you, I needed it that length to make 4 blocks. This block's going to be huge. I'm only doing this size because I want it for a demonstration. So So you just want this nice and pressed. I use steam. That's preference as well. Now what I'm going to do, we're going to get started on our blocks. So now that we've got this to this point, this is our real fence. This is our strip of real fence. We're going to turn these into blocks now. Now, what's going to be important is I've got 2.5 inches for each strip. Whatever inches you have, you're going to go by that. All that's going to matter here, we've lost our seams, so we've lost 1/4 inch on each seam. So now this would have been 10 inches when we started, and now it's at 8.5 inches. Okay, so what's going to matter is now you want to stay at the same, whatever this length is, whatever this is here, you want to be that as a square, because you don't want to cut into your 2.5 inches here or you'll be short. So it's whatever you are at when you're done putting your real fence together, cut it at the same thing. So all it is it's this easy. I'm going to go to the edge. I'm going to get rid of all these salvage. I'm going to line myself up with my ruler at the top. I'm only going off the fabric now because I'm not going to be able to cut on the any of these pieces up. I'm only going to be able to cut off the sides. So there we go. There's my waist. Now, I know that's 8.5 inches. So now I'm going to use my squaring block, my squaring ruler, and I'm going to put it at 8.5 inches. So on this, I'm just going to turn my fabric, and I'm going to take my square, line up my 8.5 here. I'm going to go to the top. Okay, and I'm going to line up where it says 8.5. Line up, make sure I'm squared. Looks great. Squared everywhere. And I'm going to cut. You're going to count twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. Count twice, measure twice, cut once. Okay. So now I've got an 8.5 inch squared fence rail. I'm going to make as many as this piece of fabric is going to give me. For my project today, I only want 4 because I did make two sets because I just wanted to be sure. What's going to happen is I want to show you how to put some of these together, and we're going to make 1 block out of 4 blocks. Okay, line that up. 8.5. Okay, line that up and cut. You can really you can do these very quickly. You can grow your quilt super fast with this block, because you can make these really big if you want to. So you can just get all kinds of designs out of this. The more you spin them, you just play with them, and they are a lot of fun. And it just depends the look you're going for. So we could put them all on the outsides, like this, or like that. So rail fences are a lot of fun to work with. So what you're going to do now is we're just going to sew them together. Now, the way I'm doing it, I'm not going to have to cross any seams. I'm just going to line these up here. I'm going to go this way. So I'm going to line these 2 up, and I'm going to line these 2 up. And I'm going to just stick a couple of pins in them. Just to hold them in place until I get to the sewing machine. And I don't have to match seams. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go sew these up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got those all sewn up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the seam on them. You can see I just sewed these two together and these two together. I'm going to set the seam, and then I am just going to open it up and press. Now, as far as pinning goes, sometimes, so I say there's no rules. There's no rules. It's any way you want it to be. But sometimes when you need something in order, it is good to put pins because you know how you're going to sew it when you get to the machine, so you don't get confused. So like this, I had this. I knew how I wanted these two blocks lined up, so I put pins. That way I knew that when I get back, I'm going to have my seams on the how they're going to be placed. I'll show you what I mean here. So I'm going to press this open. And I'm going to set this seam, press this one open. So what I mean here was, if I wouldn't have had pins in here, what if I would have just went at this angle and sewed that across? That wasn't the look I was going for. I was going for this look so they would match up with these. So by putting the pins in, did help me know exactly where my sew line was. Again, that will come with experience. And now I know I want my lines like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these two together. You can see that this quilt could be, you can make this so quickly, especially the bigger the squares, the faster the quilt is. And it's such a good quilt to begin with because you get a lot of experience and you do a lot of everything. You're pressing, you're sewing, you're back and forth, you're flattening your seams down, there's a lot to it. So, but it's easy. It's just easy. It's just, but there are quite a few steps, but it's going to grow fast. So if you want a quick quilt, this is really a good way to go about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just run to my sewing machine and I'm going to zip this seam right across here. I'll see you right back. We've got a nice square. Ta-da! I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Have a good day and remember to keep it simple. Bye.